On February 22nd, 2022, this is the Ancient and Medieval History lesson. We have just seen the last two film clips from The Passion of the Christ and Killing Jesus. Friday, we saw clips from The Last Temptation of Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ Superstar, The Greatest Story Ever Told, and Barabbas in reverse order. So we have seen depictions of this same scene that we read about last week in movies from the very early 1960s up to just 5 years ago. And there are a few superficial things that you can note. First off, the costumes get better. The Romans start out looking like guys wearing bed sheets, and they end up looking like actual Romans. The settings are pretty good across the board. Even Jesus Christ Superstar, which has no costumes at all. I mean, they're wearing, silly Broadway clothes, is filmed on location in Judea. So all of them try to capture the stark feeling of the stone place, Gabbatha, the Lithostratus. And they all try to convey Pilate and Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee, king of the Jews. And this moment of decision, it's this moment of decision I'll talk about before I take questions, comments, or thoughts. And it affects both Herod and Pilate. And what it is politics. Politics. Politics is how you deal with your opponents without killing them. In war, in some ways, it's cleaner and easier. You've got an opponent, fill him with holes. Done. You don't have to deal with the opponent's arguments. You don't have to sit at the table with the opponent and continue to negotiate and wrangle. Politics is what we have when we don't wage war, because we don't all get along. We don't all see things the same way. We don't all have the same interests. Do make sure your notes are up. We don't all come together in unity. That is not natural to us. We are factional, fractious beings. Herod Antipas mocks Jesus. The greatest mockery is obviously him, walk across my swimming pool from Jesus Christ Superstar, the guy with the young yellow sunglasses. But in each and every case, Herod Antipas mocks Jesus. Why? Because of John the Baptist. It's the shadow cast by the execution of John the Baptist. Herod Antipas was manipulated into doing that by his wife and his daughter, her daughter, his niece. Herod Antipas knew that he was already in deep trouble with a lot of Jews who he ruled because he beheaded the holy prophet John the Baptist. And now another prophet, they believe, is coming, demanding, and the priests are demanding his execution. The last scene from Killing Jesus actually captures the politics of the moment better than any of the others. The other scenes show Herod mocking him, treating it like a joke, making sport of Jesus. But that scene connected the dots between Herod's execution of John the Baptist and Herod wanting nothing to do with the blood of Jesus. So he mocks him and he deflects and he gets this problem done and out of his court. Politics is what dominates Pilate. In scene after scene after scene, you do not see a mustache twirling, scenery chewing mega villain. I'm evil! Ha! I like herding kittens and puppies and babies. I throw babies, kittens, and puppies at one another and see which bounces off the other. I'm so evil. No. Herod is a governor. He's a politician. He's the procurator of Judea. He's got a boss, the governor of Syria, who doesn't want trouble. And he's got a boss, Tiberius, emperor of the Roman world. And Tiberius is not known for his patience. Tiberius, even in his best moments, is absolutely brutal when it comes to battle and when it comes to politics. And Tiberius is not at his best in his last years. Tiberius is busy on his sex island of Capri, and we'll talk about him when we do the Roman emperors. So Pilate, even though he's the boss of all the Jews in Judea, around Jerusalem, because he's the Roman governor, has bosses that don't want any trouble. And Pilate has already caused trouble. He took temple funds to build the aqueduct, remember. He marched into Jerusalem with the legions having their eagles on their standards, which angers the crowds. Again and again, Pilate irritates the crowds. Let me look at some other details because I seem to have forgotten. Let's see. He caused riots when he added the imperial image to Legion 10 shields. And he suppressed peaceful demonstrations with blood on at least 2 occasions. In 35, 2 years after Jesus, he massacres Samaritan protesters and ultimately is recalled. Because of all these provocations, the Jews are all ready to riot, even more than they would have otherwise been. Because what they have is a Roman governor who has compromised his integrity a little bit by being petty. By being petty. It's either unwise politically or petty to put the eagles on the standards, to put the imperial sign on the shields. That's minor stuff. Handling the Jews has always required a finesse. The Jews know they can't win a war with Rome. Well, many of them do, not all. The Zealots certainly think they can. They don't want a war, most of them, any more than you and I want a war. What the Jews want is to have their religion respected, or at least tolerated. And Pilate has messed with that, and messed with that, and messed with that. The result being, he's blackmailable. The crowd can threaten to riot. The priests can threaten to cause political problems for him. A strong Roman governor wouldn't have to worry about this. But a weak Roman governor, who's already seen by his own boss as somebody who really can't handle things, he's going to want to keep everything under the surface. He's going to want to suppress problems rather than deal with them. Pilate doesn't think Jesus is guilty of any crime. He certainly doesn't think he's worthy of crucifixion. Jesus is not Spartacus. Jesus isn't even John the Baptist. Jesus is not the leaders of the Zealots, nor is he later Bar Kokhba. He is a religious dissident that the priests want crucified so that an example is made. And Pilate is weak enough to go along with it because he's made himself weak. Politics caused Herod Antipas to have nothing to do with it and mock Jesus. Politics causes Pilate to knowingly sentence an innocent man to death. Sacrifice this one man. Just this one man. Just this one man. And everything will be well. People are not seduced to the dark side of the force all at once. Not in reality. Let's imagine for a moment that you're ambitious, that you want to achieve things in your life. You want to have wealth. You want to have comfort. You want to have power. You want to have status. You want to be over people. Well, that's not uncommon. We're social animals. Many of us want to be in charge. But not all of us are able to get power on our own. We need help. We need people who believe in us, who will back us with their support and their money. We need people who are willing to take time out of their day to campaign for us. And that's in our democratic system. It's much harder, actually, to get power if you're an outsider in a non-democratic system, because you've got to know somebody and somebody's got to owe you, and it's a whole bunch of patron-client stuff. So you get the support, you get the money, you get the voters going out and encouraging other people to vote for you. You get the signs. You get all the panoply of a politician. And let's say you win. There you are. If you want to stay there, you've got to keep that support. You've got to expand it. You've got to make more money. You've got to get more support. It's not so much that people go up to a politician that they've helped and say, hey, I helped you. Now it's time for you to help me. They don't need to. Everyone knows. The name of the game is going along to get along. So if you want this person's ongoing support, and you know that this person wants you to back ethanol subsidies because he's a corn farmer, and he wants the federal government to buy his corn at a good price. He wants a guaranteed market for his corn. And ethanol, which is corn that is added to corn alcohol that's added to gasoline, was developed in the 1970s as a way of reducing our consumption of oil. It is controversial. It's not necessarily good for your engine. It's even not necessarily good for the environment, latest studies show. But still, for decades, people have gotten used to having ethanol subsidies. So if you're a politician in Congress and you want the ongoing support of farmers and people who are in the ethanol business, you'd better not vote against ethanol. You'd better not vote to cut the ethanol subsidies. You'd better not vote to get rid of the ethanol requirement in much of the unleaded gasoline that we use. They're not going to tell you that you owe them. They're just not going to support you in the future. And your happy ride as a politician, living the high life, will be over. Everyone knows it. No one has to be crass. No one has to, do backroom deals in actual back rooms, giving you suitcases full of money. That isn't the way it's done these days. It used to be. Not so much these days anymore. It doesn't need to be. The money required for a political campaign is so great. If the donors simply turn off the spigots and stop giving you money, you are probably toast. And if the party itself, the party leadership, decides that you're no longer reliable to give certain kinds of votes in certain kinds of ways, they will switch their support to someone else. And you will be out of a job. And you'll have to go get a real job again in the real world. Pilate doesn't want that. Herod doesn't want that. Although Herod would just be overthrown. Pilate would be replaced. But actually, Pilate was on trial for incompetence. And had Tiberius lived, Pilate probably would have died horrible death. Because he made Tiberius look bad. You all are talented people. Every single one of you. And that means the temptation will come your way. And the temptation will almost never come in the form of a cloven-hoofed devil with red skin and goat horns and bad breath. I know, that would be fun. It would come in the form of a little compromise. All you have to do is something a little wrong. You know it's wrong, I know it's wrong, but it's got to be done. It's a price you pay for playing in the big leagues. It's the price you pay for being in the room where it happens. And that, isn't it worth a little give and take, a little going along to get along. That's all. It's just a small thing. It always starts out with just a small thing. And soon they own you. And you know it. And they know it. And you're not a force for change. You're not a force for good. You're the poster boy or poster girl for whatever it is that's behind you. Your integrity is the gift that you give yourself. Your integrity is your insistence on leading the life that you have on the basis of what you believe. And no one can take that integrity away from you except you. Any questions, comments, or thoughts? The great fear I have is that someday I'll be Pilate. But I have been. And at some point again, I will be. So will you. We'll be in that situation where we have to make a decision. Do we crucify the innocent man to stop the riots and keep our job? Or instead, do we run the risk of riots and civil wars? I don't see any questions. If you don't ask questions, I'm just going to keep talking. By the way, 2 people in here seem to have new haircuts. They look very nice, both of them. Stuart. If it wasn't for politics, Jesus of Nazareth would not have been sentenced to death. Behold the power of politics. We're set.